This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi.
And this is our series on extreme beliefs. Today, we delve into a fascinating exploration of ideologies that push the boundaries of conventional societal norms and examine their effects on their followers. You may have heard of Scientology, known for its Hollywood adherent and secretive practices, or the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, FLDS, recognized for its controversial polygamous practices. Yet these are just two examples with an expansive landscape of extraordinary belief systems. Our focus today narrows into the Word of Faith Fellowship, a church in North Carolina led by Jane Whaley, which stands accused of severe misconduct and abuse. These are, however, just allegations. It's essential to note that Word of Faith Fellowship fervently denies all allegations brought against them. Today, we aim to shine a light on those accusations in a 5-part podcast series about the Word of Faith Fellowship from the reporting of Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist for the Associated Press, Mitch Weiss. With all of these allegations, I mean, if this were happening at Costco or in sort of business or something here that has all of these sort of allegations, it would be shut down. It would be investigated. It would be boycotted. There would be a ton of things going into it, even just the allegations, even without any sort of proof. Is there something with the religious standing that, in addition to the people connected in high places, but does their standing as a religious organization somehow also protect them or shield them from being looked into further, because it's looked at as, well, this is their right to believe what they want to believe, even if there are children here involved?
Tony, you're absolutely right. I don't know if you remember this, but about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a very small church in New York, maybe 40 members, unlike Word of Faith, which has thousands on 3 continents. And they practiced corporal punishment. And during one of the sessions, one of the children died. Yeah. And the New York AG's office moved in, I believe, and shut it down immediately. There was no, well, it's their First Amendment right. The freedom of religion ends with child abuse, I think. And their argument has always been, we don't abuse children. This is our religious right to discipline children the way we want to, and stay out of our business. Stay out of our business. And what they've done is gone far beyond what a normal parent would do. It's one thing to administer corporal punishment. It's another thing to put a child in a building separated from his parents for an extended period of time because you believe the kid may have had sexual thoughts. Yeah. There's a big difference. There's a difference between, ministers just routinely hitting children because they look at them and say, I know there's a demon inside you right now. It's the cruelty.
It seems we have very gray lines in the United States when it comes to churches and religions and what they can do with kids and what rest of society would say is okay to do with kids. The stories that you've shared talking about the gentleman who was gay and then being screamed at for days trying to get the gay demon out, which is just, it's insane that we even have to say a sentence like that at this day and age. But those sort of practices, I would think would be certainly considered abusive. But when you say, well, it's our religion, it's our way to rear the child by screaming at them, which would be considered, I'm sure at the end of the day, massive psychological abuse that these children are growing up with, and the ones that have escaped, I know they can speak of it. I've seen them. But there's that gray line where we have this fear, it seems, of overstepping bounds into the arena of religion. It seems like the government's ready to step in on every other thing that we possibly can do, but religion, that's where they draw the line, it seems, far too often, and to the detriment of so many of these innocent people.
Tony, you're right. I mean, when I talk to the children who were born into the church, the ones who knew nothing about the outside world, their earliest memories are of being screamed at and having massive headaches and, hours, people screaming at them over and over, getting in their face. It was almost the spittle just coming out, touching them, sometimes jumping on top of them, dogpiling them, hitting them. That's what they remember from their childhood. Those are their earliest memories. And the church knew what they were doing was wrong. I mean, otherwise, they would have defended things like putting men in the lower building, which they denied happened, even though we have, to this point, probably more than 30 that talk about it, who said they were down there, and it's not an easy thing to admit. The one guy spent 2 years down there, where he was let out of the building to go to work for a company-owned business, came back at night, and they blasted him, beat him, and he had to pray all night long. But at one point, they had, getting back to Michael Lowry, where we started, at one point, they held a meeting, and the meeting was church leadership with those two attorneys who were assistant district attorneys at the time. And they had to come up with a plan on how to discredit Michael Lowry. And they came up with all sorts of things. They knew his test scores, so they knew that he had a very, very, very low IQ. So they came up with a plan. Hey, you know what? Let's just say he really didn't understand because of his low IQ. He was mentally challenged. Well, I don't know if that would work. Hey, maybe we could do this. So they came up with a whole series of ways to explain to authorities why they were holding him, why they might have screamed at him, and why other people were being held in that building. So they understood what they were doing was wrong, and they used their lawyers and other, key people in leadership to come up with excuses why they did it. The religious thing.
Sure.
It's part of religion,
It seems either deny or it's going to be, well, it's part of our religion. When they knew then that they were under scrutiny, and this is, just human behavior in general. If someone doesn't know they're under scrutiny and they're doing bad, nefarious, evil things, and no one's seeming to pay attention, they just kind of keep going and doing. And sometimes it gets worse and worse. In this case, they obviously know, they got you on their tail. They had the federal government looking at them for a period of time. Do you think or know if maybe they've toned back any of these things over the last couple of years, going, hey, if they really raided us or came in and got us red-handed, and these allegations are true, we would be facing a lot of shit?
From what we understand from people who have come out recently, it's still going on, but it's not as open.
Okay.
There was a period where it was so open, it would take place, like beatings in the middle of church services. So they're a little more discreet about where the abuse goes on, because you have to understand that her philosophy is you have to yell and beat demons out of people, right? Demons are bad. They're in you and they're making you do bad things. So if you take that out of her philosophy, then what does she have left that differentiates her from other churches?
It's kind of her calling card.
In order to survive, she has to continue. It's just a little more discreet.
With her, she's what, 79 now? Is that correct?
No, I think she may be 81.
81. Okay.
82. Yeah, maybe even a little older. 82, I think.
Is she still a very active leader in the church, or has the reins been pushed down to more up-and-coming pastors or anything of that nature?
No, she's still a vibrant leader. But I think what we've been told is she's been grooming her grandson to become, his name is Brock, to become the next leader of the church. She had one daughter, and the daughter married this guy, Frank Webster, who she sent to law school, who later became one of those assistant district attorneys who was let go after our stories. And they had one child, Brock. And she is grooming him to be the leader of the church when, one day, I don't think she'll ever step down, but one day when she passes away.
Yeah. It's just another disturbing story of, and we look on the outside going in, usually far after something horrible happens, the see something, say something. But I mean, it's one of those where you're looking at this and you've seen something and you've said something far more loud with the megaphone that you have with the Associated Press than most possibly can. And that it's coming from the Associated Press, not a news magazine or something like that where things can get a little more fluffy. It's the AP. So it holds a certain level of credibility with everything. And still we don't see a whole lot going on. What would it take, in your opinion, for an investigation to seriously get back into gear into this church and the ways that they handle things, where maybe some justice finally can be found, and either they change their ways or this thing gets disbanded, and people coming out of a cult then have to make that realization that, hey, you were just in a cult.
What it would take is one thing: for the feds to do their job, for the federal government, federal law enforcement to do their damn job. Okay? They get paid to do their job. And in this case, they failed. They've known for 30 years this is going on. They've made excuses over and over and over again. They stopped an investigation where leaders were, ready to plead guilty. They were, negotiating. Do your job. If you truly care about children, if you truly care about people, because, there are people that are at that church who have been separated from their families for years and years, separated from loved ones. They have no contact with them because the church doesn't want them to have contact. Mm-hmm. Do your job. That's all you have to do. And so far, they haven't done that, Tony.
My question would be, why? What is holding them back? Is there some sort of threat to their own well-being or to their careers who would want to push this envelope, as we talked about earlier, with them having people in positions of power? I mean, the federal government's a pretty big thing. I can understand more so when it's in their own individual town and jurisdiction, how that can get pretty corrupt. I mean, just look at the Alec Murdaugh case recently and how much we found out that area in South Carolina was very corrupt. But in a national level, with things like this, where we are talking about the possible crimes that may cross interstate boundaries and such, why do they not go further? What is the holdback? Do you have any ideas or theories on that?
Maybe they lost their way. Maybe they forgot why they became FBI agents, or they began working for Homeland Security. I know the one thing that drives me is I've never forgotten why I became a journalist. I became a journalist to expose wrongdoing. I have a Pulitzer in investigative journalism. I pride myself on taking on tough cases, stories that people don't want to write about.
Yeah.
Because it takes more time. And I just think they lost their way. It's the fear of maybe being fired, crossing political leaders who are your bosses. I don't know. I just know that the church hasn't been held accountable, and the feds haven't been held accountable for their role in letting this continue.
There's more to come in our discussion with Mitch Weiss about the Word of Faith Fellowship. Be sure to press subscribe wherever you download podcasts so you don't miss any more of our conversation as we continue to drop them throughout the week here on the podcast. My name's Tony Bruschi. Stay with us. Word of Faith Fellowship fervently denies all allegations and accusations brought against them.